Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Guys, I've been away for a day, and what a wild 48 hours has it been. The UK it's gone pretty much unnoticed in the media, but the UK have just shown their hand with regards to conscription and how they're going to get people to fight in these up and coming wars. Always look out for the weeds, what's happening in the small talk and things that get brushed over quickly. Because these big trees, these big policy movements, they grow out of these weedlings. And the seeds are set long before they even, these trees even grow. But yeah, the British government have come out recently and they've told us basically, not in so many words, but they've told us how they're going to get people to join the military. So quickly, guys, what we're going to talk about today is Ukraine's just launched a I forgot how to talk. Ukraine has just launched a mass drone attack on Russia. We've got to talk about the Israel and Hezbollah conflict and how that's dragging Cyprus into the into that region. We've got US weapons now that are not restricted only to fire in Russian areas around Kharkiv. We've got the Russians changing the doctrine for their nuclear weapons, as in changing the reasons why they can fire nuclear weapons. And then obviously we've got Rishi Sunak coming out now saying that there'd be a penalty for young people who refuse national service, aka conscription, recruitment drive, doing good stuff and all that kind of stuff, guys. So let's just get into it, guys. I'm going to fire through this as quickly as possible because I understand it's Friday night. You guys have probably going to go out. It's nice weather and you want to have a few beers. So I'll fire through this, guys, just so you've got something to keep you thinking about. So, mass drone attacks on Ukraine have just fired a mass drone attack into Russian territories. They targeted vessels in the Black Sea, Crimea, southern Russia. They've been striking oil refiners, radar and other military targets. What I think's key here is the radar. So, I've been keeping an eye on these F-16s when they're going to start flying. I've also been watching for the Ukrainians taking out their radar systems, their early warning systems, their air defense systems, and all this sort of stuff, which would give greater survivability to the F-16s when they do come into service. Russia have claimed to have shot down over 70 drones near over the Black Sea and Crimea. Now, just put that into context, guys. 70 drones. Remember what I spoke about, this new weapon that the Brits have, the Dragonfire, and how they're clear. You get these posh people on, with Oxford accents going, yes, the Dragonfire air defense system can take out a multi-million-dollar drone for the price of a bottle of wine. And while that statement is true, warfare has changed so much. There won't be multi-million-dollar drones attacking Dragonfire. It will be small drones that cost like $500. And what we said previously, I think 5 drones traveling, I did a video on it, I think 5 drones traveling at 60 mile an hour would overwhelm it. 5 drones at that speed, the Dragonfire wouldn't be able to change targets quick enough, and those drones would destroy it eventually because it can only fire at one for a specific length of time and it has to keep moving. Now, look what we've just said. The Russians shot down 70. So that has kind of put this British multi-million-pound air defence system, it's gone, it's out of the kitchen, it's not fit for service, it's useless, might as well not even deploy it because it's just a waste of money. But you see how the warfare's evolving so quickly, and what was relevant last year is not relevant anymore, and we need to give more what's the word I'm looking for? We need to give more. We need to get rid of red tape in the UK because it's this red tape that's slowing our military process down. So, the Israel and Hezbollah conflict that's about to happen with Israel and Lebanon. Now, Hezbollah have come out and they've said if there's a conflict, they will have no red lines, and they're aiming at Cyprus. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a huge RAF base there, RAF Akatiri. I've been there many times myself. Really nice place, you know. And you know, if you're in the military, it's always a joke that the RAF get, like, you know, really nice accommodation. They get to, you know, it's like a holiday camp. And guys, if you get a few weeks in RAF Akatiri, it's like being on holiday. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, guys, that's my little rant about the RAF. Now, let me switch quickly and then come back. So Russian state media a couple of days ago, they identified that RAF Akatiri could be a target for the Russians to strike. Now, let's put that into context with what we know and what we're seeing in the world. We're seeing this East versus West, you know, battle groups, you know, evolve. So also you saw Russia, you know, Putin say that he could arm the West's adversaries to strike them. Now, what we're seeing is the potential here for, you know, Syria, obviously Hezbollah, lots of different groups in that region that could use Russian weapons to strike the RAF base. Now, the RAF is it's strategic in the sense that it's a huge RAF base. It's got the capacity to fly, you know, all sorts of fast jets, from your F-16s right up to your F-35s and everything in between. It can also fly the bigger aircraft, so your C-17s, your C-130s, your A-400s, I think they are now. You know, so it can fly all that sort of stuff from there. Not only can it fly aircraft from there, it can also service, repair, refuel, rearm. So it's a huge, you know, it's a huge strategic importance of that region because of the capacities it has. Remember, you know, I've done lots of videos talking about, you know, the F-16s and the servicing and all the other bits, and the maintenance. Where's that going to come from? Well, RAF Akatiri can do all that sort of stuff, and it has huge capacity for surge capacity for troops. So, for example, if the American Airborne wanted to do a mass parachute jump into that region, they could fly into Cyprus, they could stay there for a couple of days, do some training, get on their aircraft, then go fly and be dropped off, you know, jump into wherever they want to go and jump into. Or, of course, the British Parachute Regiment. But the British Parachute Regiment, I feel, will be deployed Eastern Europe area. Remember, it's all about these diversions that you're going to see between America and the US. America are going to be focusing on the Middle East with Iran, with Hezbollah, with Lebanon, with the Black Sea, with the Houthis, you know, and potentially China, while the UK and the rest of NATO will be in Eastern Europe fighting the Russians. But guys, that's just my speculation. What do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? So yeah, you're just seeing this deeper global conflict now. It's just widening and the gaps are getting bigger. Guys, can you remember when there was a big hullabaloo in the news about the United States not letting Ukrainians fire US-made weapons into Russian mainland? And the first thing I said was, right, okay guys, that doesn't really matter because the UK via David Cameron have already said that, you know, the UK doesn't mind where they fire their weapons because, you know, they're their weapons. Now, it's come out now that, well, I mean, first of all, guys, it was just all smoke and mirrors because the Americans can sell weapons to the United Kingdom, or the Americans can then give gift weapons to the United Kingdom. Then the United Kingdom can then sell or gift the weapons to the Ukrainians, so they're not actually American weapons, they're British weapons. You see where it goes, guys. There's always a way around it. But now it comes that, you know, so if you remember back then, the Americans said you can only fire at targets in and around Kharkiv. Now, it's come out that the US have changed their mind now, and they're saying, well, you know, you're allowed to fire in targets that are not around Kharkiv now. So remember, guys, all right, remember what I talk about all the time with this tactical tiptoe. So one country will push something and then, you know, they'll stop and then people forget about it and then somebody else will do something and then you'll get a little bit of mission creep. And it's just pushing the red lines further and further and further forwards. Let's also consider this now. Just consider it if you're a Russian. And guys, be under no illusion, the Russians are the aggressors in this conflict. Nobody pushed them over that border in 2022. You know, they did go over, we are where we are, and I'm just telling you what's happening and what's happening next. So take this now from the Russian perspective. You're sat there and you are an everyday Russian. You don't care about the war. All you want to do is live your life, look after your kids, and then, you know, and enjoy the little, you know, the things that make you happy. All of a sudden, through no fault of your own, you're now getting American weapons and American bombs dropped in and around your village if you live near one of those border towns. Imagine the perspective of those Russians. What are they going to be thinking? Which side of this argument are they going to go on? Are they going to be sympathetic to the West and sympathetic to Ukraine, or are they going to become hardline Russian, hardline Russians? Let me know what you think, guys. But, you know, these things, these escalations, when they happen, they need to be thought out, and I'm sure they have been thought out, but that's just, you know, the reality of the situation on the ground. If you're a Russian and you live in that, you know, in that area, guys, and again, exactly the same with the Ukrainians. Some of the things that have happened to the Ukrainians, I can't talk about on this channel. You know, but Borodyanka, Irpin and Bucha, absolutely disgusting. And when all this comes out and people, you know, and this information comes into the light, it's going to change a lot of people's perspective on this whole conflict. So also, as a backdrop to all this, you've got the Russians now changing their nuclear doctrine. So, you know, basically, it's the reasons why they can use their nuclear weapons. So the Russians are looking at why they can use their nuclear weapons, what it says at the moment, and looking at how they're going to change them. It's largely an academic, I think that's the wrong word to use. It's largely an academic process at the moment because, you know, be under no illusion, if Putin wants nuclear weapons to fire, they will fire. But the significance of the review is they're talking about the reasons for firing them, and they're lowering the perceived threshold for use. Remember the perceived threshold, because like I just said, guys, you know, if Vladimir Putin wants them to go, they'll go. But the perceived threshold, so they're looking at the posturing with the UK, with NATO. They're looking at what NATO are doing. Remember, NATO's nuclear posturing's gone up as well. NATO are saying now that I did a video on it, Jens Stoltenberg. NATO are saying that they're going to take the nuclear weapons out of storage and refurbish them and put them into a place where they can be deployed. You know, all this takes time, all this takes money. So then the Russians now, they're lowering the thresholds for use. Now, I've been saying this all the time. I don't think a strategic nuclear weapon is going to be used per se. But I do think the use of low-yield tactical nuclear weapons is going to happen. And the Russians have been practicing with their tactical nuclear weapons. You know, these things are not hard to see. You know, they've been practicing using their tactical nuclear weapons. Belarus is involved in that nuclear training, you know, and all this will start to make sense once we see the F-16s start flying. And again, guys, you know, who's going to pilot these things? You know, from my sources, from people I know in that industry, you know, the Ukrainians are really struggling with getting trained pilots. So I think the Ukrainian Foreign Legion is going to expand its scope of employment to employ ex-NATO pilots. So maybe US pilots who've done, I don't know what it is in America, 22 years as a US Air Force pilot. Dutch pilots, whoever, you know, people who've got experience in flying those aircraft. I think these guys will be paid their salary from the Ukrainians. They will be officially part of the Ukrainian military, so they can't be called a mercenary, but they'll be getting some sort of money off an NGO. I could go into that and how that would work, but that's for another video. Don't forget, guys, okay, it's not just the Russians posturing, it's NATO posturing now, and both sides, East and West, are both posturing with their nuclear weapons. Guys, I've just thought of something that I should have had in this video. It's about the Russians paying people for spies. I'll come on to that at the end. Yeah, so that's what you've got at the moment, guys. Now, Rishi Sunak has just dropped a bombshell, and again, this thing's been largely glossed over in the media. So he's come out and he said, let me read it here quickly, guys. Rishi Sunak floats sanctions on young people for refusing national service. Prime Minister suggests suggests a curb on finance or driving licenses for 18-year-olds who refuse service during challenging question time. Leader special. Right, okay. So what's he saying then? I mean, first and foremost, guys, I think we all know that Rishi Sunak is not going to be the Prime Minister in a couple, well, on the 5th of July. It's more than likely going to be, what's his name? Keir Starmer the drama. But the conversation is now open. You know, the seeds have been planted. So what does this mean then? What are we talking about when we talk about, how does he put it? Hang on. Yeah, curbs on finances. The finances are the big one. So when we put financial penalties on people, and guys, this is just my speculation now, okay? From what he said. When we start talking about financially, what's he say? Curbs on finances. Now, this to me, and this is my opinion, guys, my speculation is that this will be the poor kids who have to go and fight. Because if they will make it in such a way that if you don't go and join up for national service, remember it will remember what I said, guys, okay? It will never be conscription. There'll be a mass military, there'll be a mass recruitment drive, and then they will frame it some other way. And this is how they're doing it, guys. They're saying, okay, guys, we're not going to do conscription, but if you don't do national service, there'll be no loans, no driver's license, you'll not be able to use, I don't know, digital currency, you'll not be able to pay with a card in certain shops or for certain things. Whenever you go to register at certain places, certain, like, I don't know, you could do this, so the cinema, the, you know, your fast food restaurants, anywhere basically that you have to give an ID, that you have to do some sort of logging in. You know, the government could just say, no, that guy's not done his national service, he can't do it. Now, of course, they're not making you do national service, but you see where I'm going with that, guys, okay? If you're, you know, if your family are well off, you're wealthy, you don't need a loan, you don't need a driving license, you don't need all the rest of this stuff because you've got it naturally. So that's how this thing's going to move forwards, guys, okay? It's not going to be conscription, it's going to be, I'm going to call it de facto conscription. In fact, yeah, it's not conscription, it's de facto conscription. So we've got tactical tiptoe from this channel and de facto conscription and late stage democracy. Guys, this is an absolutely terrifying phase we're moving into. Can you imagine the dystopia of that scenario where you've got a person X, they don't believe in a war, they don't want to fight in it, but they can't do anything because the government are telling them they're not allowed any basic life utilities to do that. Guys, it's absolutely insane. You know, this is kind of I said this would happen, but I didn't realize how dystopian and how quickly this would get. Guys, I was going to leave it there, but I just remembered the Russian thing. So the Russians have come out, I think somewhere in Europe, it was the Germans. So the Germans released an article the other day, and they said that and again, I've said this so many times, they said that the Russians are not they're paying people basically to spy now. And guys, this is what I said for the longest time. I said, it makes no sense anymore in this world, you know, to send your best guy in his tuxedo with his expensive watch and his Aston Martin. It makes no sense. That costs a lot of money. You can just pay somebody a small amount of money, and then you can, you know, you can do whatever, you know, there's a lot of information out there in open source information. There's a lot of people give information away for free. You know, there's so much more you can do. And this whole espionage sphere, it's changed now, and it's just basically give somebody cash and they'll spy for you. Remember, this is going to move forwards into the soft targets and to the, right, I'll give you cash, you go and do that criminal activity that's still going to be sabotage as well. And they're never going to be able to pin it on anyone because these are going to be criminal gangs. And that's just the way we're going, guys. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to mag to grid. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back tomorrow.